The first gunshot shattered the wedding reception's joyful atmosphere like glass exploding. Guests screamed and dove under tables as three armed men burst through the ballroom doors, automatic weapons raised, shouting demands that sent 200 people into immediate panic. Behind her professional camera, Victoria Kane didn't flinch. Instead, she dropped into a shooting stance that had nothing to do with photography and everything to do with the 6 years she'd spent as an Army intelligence reconnaissance specialist. In the chaos of overturned chairs and terrified screams, the quiet wedding photographer became something else entirely. A tactical observer who had been trained to turn chaos into controlled precision. Welcome to the Silent Heroes. Before we continue this powerful story of hidden training and protective instincts, tell us in the comments from which city in the world are you watching this video today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button to support the channel. We're growing every day, and your support helps us honor those who served with distinction. The grand ballroom at the Riverside Hotel was Victoria Kane's office that evening, though most people would have called it paradise. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in ivory linens, while white roses and baby's breath created an atmosphere of elegant romance. 200 guests had gathered to celebrate Jennifer Walsh and Marcus Brighton's wedding, their faces glowing with happiness and champagne. Victoria moved through the celebration like a professional ghost, her camera capturing moments that would become treasured memories. The bride's grandmother wiping away tears during the first dance, the groom's military buddies raising a toast, children sneaking cake from the dessert table. At 32, she had photographed over 300 weddings, developing an almost supernatural ability to anticipate perfect shots, the split second before a laugh, the exact moment when joy becomes tears. What the happy couples in her portfolio never knew was that Sergeant Victoria Kane had spent 6 years in the United States Army, assigned to military intelligence as a reconnaissance specialist. Her official job had been gathering battlefield intelligence through advanced surveillance equipment, but her real expertise was reading terrain, identifying threats, and providing overwatch for forward operating bases in Afghanistan and Iraq. Victoria's specialty had been long-range surveillance operations, spending days hidden in concealed positions, watching enemy movements through high-powered scopes. She'd learned to read micro-expressions that revealed deception, to notice behavioral patterns that indicated hostile intent, and to remain motionless for hours while cataloging intelligence that kept soldiers alive. Her photography skills had actually begun in the military, where she documented enemy positions and troop movements with telephoto lenses that could capture details from over a mile away. Her transition to wedding photography wasn't as random as it seemed. Both jobs required patience, precision timing, and the ability to capture decisive moments that would never come again. Victoria's Combat Action Badge wasn't displayed in her studio, alongside her photography awards. It was buried in a footlocker with her Army uniform and memories she preferred to keep private. The badge marked her as someone who had engaged hostile forces in ground combat, a distinction earned during a Taliban assault on Forward Operating Base Chapman, where her surveillance work had identified enemy positions and saved dozens of American lives. The attack had come at dawn, with coordinated mortar fire, followed by a ground assault from 3 directions. Victoria had been in her observation post, a concealed position on the base's highest point, when she spotted muzzle flashes from enemy sniper positions that weren't visible to ground personnel. Her radio calls directed counter-battery fire that eliminated the threat, but not before she'd engaged multiple hostiles with her designated marksman rifle to protect the evacuation routes. For 47 minutes, Victoria had provided overwatch while wounded soldiers were evacuated under fire, her scope tracking targets and her voice calm on the radio despite the chaos erupting around her position. When the engagement ended, her commanding officer noted that her surveillance skills and steady marksmanship had been the difference between a tactical victory and a potential massacre. She'd left the Army in 2018, not from any inability to serve, but from a desire to capture beauty instead of tracking danger. Wedding photography had seemed like the perfect transition. It required the same attention to detail, the same ability to read people and situations, the same patience to wait for the perfect moment. The skills transferred more naturally than she'd expected. Though, instead of spotting insurgents through rifle scopes, she now spotted emotions through camera lenses. That Saturday evening had been unfolding perfectly. Jennifer and Marcus were a military couple. He was a Navy pilot, she was a Marine Corps logistics officer, and their reception reflected their service backgrounds with subtle touches of ceremony and tradition. Victoria had captured their sword arch exit from the church, the formal military toasts, and the gentle moments between a couple who understood duty and sacrifice. At 8:47 p.m., during the cake-cutting ceremony, everything changed. The first gunman entered through the main ballroom doors with the confidence of someone who had planned this attack carefully. He was followed immediately by two others who spread out to control exits with tactical precision that Victoria recognized immediately. These weren't desperate criminals or angry wedding crashers. They moved like trained operators executing a coordinated assault. While guests screamed and scrambled for cover, Victoria's mind shifted into intelligence-gathering mode. 3 hostiles, automatic weapons, organized entry pattern. The leader wore a tactical vest under his jacket, suggesting preparation and probable military training. His companions flanked the room's exits, creating a controlled environment with limited escape routes. Victoria's camera was still in her hands, but her perspective had changed completely. Instead of framing artistic shots, she was conducting battlefield reconnaissance, cataloging threats, and assessing tactical options with skills that had kept soldiers alive in hostile territory. "Everyone on the ground!" the lead gunman shouted, firing a burst into the ceiling that sent plaster raining down on terrified guests. "This is about the general. Where is General Brighton?" Victoria's pulse quickened. Marcus Brighton wasn't just any groom. He was the son of Brigadier General Robert Brighton, a high-profile military commander who had recently testified before Congress about overseas operations. This wasn't a random attack. It was a targeted operation designed to capture or harm a military family. The bride, Jennifer, had instinctively shielded an elderly woman beside her, probably her grandmother. Marcus stood protectively in front of his new wife, his military bearing evident even in civilian clothes. Other guests cowered under tables, many sobbing in terror as they processed the transformation of their celebration into a hostage situation. Victoria made a tactical decision that would have impressed her old Army instructors. Using her camera's telephoto lens, she began documenting the attackers' faces, weapons, and positioning while staying low behind an overturned buffet table. If this situation ended badly, law enforcement would need detailed intelligence about the perpetrators. If it ended well, the evidence might prevent future attacks. Her camera's advanced settings allowed her to capture clear images even in the ballroom's chaotic lighting conditions. Years of photographing in low-light environments, both in combat zones and dimly lit wedding venues, had taught her to adjust ISO, aperture, and shutter speed instinctively. Each photograph was composed with the methodical precision of someone who understood that documentation could mean the difference between justice and impunity. Through her viewfinder, she captured clear images of each gunman's face, noting identifying marks, approximate ages, and equipment details with the methodical precision of someone trained in intelligence collection. Her camera's silent mode allowed her to work undetected, gathering crucial information while appearing to cower like other guests. The lead gunman approached the head table, where Marcus stood defiantly. "You're Brighton's boy," he said, raising his weapon. "Your daddy's testimony got some good men killed overseas. Time to settle accounts." "Leave my family out of this," Marcus replied, with the calm authority of a military officer. "If you have issues with my father, take them up with him." "Oh, we will," the gunman smiled coldly. "But first, he's going to watch his son suffer." That's when Victoria Kane stopped being a wedding photographer and became a reconnaissance specialist again. Moving with the fluid stealth she'd perfected during nighttime surveillance missions, Victoria repositioned herself behind the DJ booth, where she had better angles on all three attackers. Her camera continued clicking silently, but now she was also calculating tactical possibilities: sightlines, cover positions, potential weapons among the formal dinner setting. She spotted something the attackers had missed. Marcus's military buddies from his Navy squadron hadn't panicked like civilian guests. 4 men in dress uniforms had spread out around the room and were communicating through subtle hand signals, preparing for coordinated action. Victoria recognized their tactical positioning immediately. They were creating overlapping fields of observation and preparing multiple angles of approach, exactly the kind of coordinated response she'd witnessed during joint operations in Afghanistan. Victoria caught Marcus's eye and used military hand signals to indicate the positions of all 3 gunmen. Index finger pointed discreetly to show directions, followed by the number of fingers to indicate threat count at each position. Her signals were precise and economical, the kind of silent communication that had coordinated strikes against enemy positions in hostile territory. Marcus's eyes widened slightly as he recognized both her competence and her military background. Then he nodded almost imperceptibly to acknowledge her intelligence, while simultaneously relaying the information to his squadron mates through their own silent communication network. The situation was about to change. The lead gunman made his first tactical error by turning his back to search for General Brighton among the guests. In that moment, Marcus moved with the precision of his military training, disarming the distracted attacker while his Navy friends simultaneously neutralized the other 2 gunmen. The entire engagement lasted less than 30 seconds, but Victoria documented every moment with the clinical precision of a reconnaissance specialist. Her camera captured the coordinated takedown, the weapons being secured, and the moment when wedding guests realized they were safe. As police sirens wailed in the distance and hotel security rushed to secure the scene, Victoria continued photographing, not for artistic purposes now, but to provide law enforcement with comprehensive documentation of the incident and its aftermath. Detective James Morrison arrived 20 minutes later to find a crime scene that looked more like a military operation than a wedding reception. The three attackers were restrained and conscious, the weapons were secured, and witnesses were organized into efficient debriefing groups. "Who coordinated this response?" Detective Morrison asked, scanning the room with professional admiration. Marcus Brighton gestured toward Victoria, who was calmly reviewing images on her camera's LCD screen. "Our photographer, sir. She provided tactical intelligence and documented everything." Detective Morrison approached Victoria with curiosity. "Ma'am, that was remarkably professional surveillance work. Do you have law enforcement background?" Victoria looked up from her camera, meeting his gaze with the steady confidence that had once earned respect in military briefing rooms. "Army intelligence, detective. 6 years, 2 deployments. Reconnaissance specialist." "What made you leave the service?" he asked. Victoria glanced around the ballroom where wedding guests were being comforted by family members, where a bride and groom were holding hands despite their ordeal, where love had survived an attempt to destroy it. "Wanted to capture beautiful moments instead of dangerous ones," she said simply. 3 weeks later, Victoria's photographs from that evening served dual purposes. The artistic images she'd taken before the attack became treasured memories of Jennifer and Marcus's wedding day. Moments of pure joy preserved forever. The tactical photographs she'd taken during the crisis became key evidence in a federal terrorism case. The FBI's counterterrorism unit was particularly impressed with Victoria's work. Agent Sarah Hendricks, who led the investigation, noted that Victoria's surveillance skills had captured details that even security cameras had missed. Her photos revealed the attackers' coordination patterns, equipment specifications, and behavioral indicators that helped identify other members of their domestic terror cell. In 20 years of federal investigations, Agent Hendricks told Victoria, "I've never seen civilian documentation this professionally executed. Your military training probably prevented this from becoming a much larger incident." The investigation revealed that the terror cell had been planning simultaneous attacks on 3 different military families, using weddings and celebrations as soft targets where security would be minimal. Victoria's photographs had captured not just the immediate attackers, but also a 4th individual who had been positioned as a lookout near the hotel entrance, someone who had fled when the operation failed, but whose face was now clearly documented in federal databases. Jennifer and Marcus sent Victoria a handwritten note with their wedding album. "Thank you for capturing not just our wedding day, but the moment we learned that heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they carry cameras and have eyes that see everything." Victoria framed the note and hung it in her studio, next to a new addition to her wall, her combat action badge, displayed proudly for the first time since leaving the Army. She'd finally found a way to honor both sides of her service: the warrior who had protected soldiers in combat, and the artist who now protected memories in peacetime. 6 months later, Victoria's studio had evolved. While she still specialized in wedding photography, she'd also begun training other photographers in situational awareness and emergency response. Her classes, officially called Advanced Event Documentation, taught skills that went far beyond taking pictures. One afternoon, a young photographer named Lisa approached her after a training session. "Victoria, I've been thinking about joining the military. Your story makes me think I could serve and still pursue photography afterward." Victoria smiled, remembering her own journey from battlefield surveillance to wedding albums. Service teaches you to see what others miss, she said. Whether you're looking through a rifle scope or a camera lens, the skills are the same: patience, precision, and protecting what matters most. As Lisa left the studio with new understanding of how military training could enhance civilian careers, Victoria returned to editing photos from a weekend wedding. But now her work carried deeper meaning than artistic expression. It was a continuation of her service, protecting treasured moments, instead of forward operating bases, but still standing guard over what people held most dear. Some veterans transition from military service to completely different careers. Others, like Victoria Kane, discover that service never really ends. It just finds new ways to protect what matters. Behind every perfect wedding photo is an artist with a warrior's eye, keeping watch while love unfolds. Now I ask you, have you ever met someone whose artistic work hid extraordinary military training? Someone who served without recognition until crisis revealed their true capabilities? Share their story in the comments below. Because at the Silent Heroes, we believe that heroes come in all forms. Sometimes they're the ones capturing your most precious moments. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please subscribe and help us honor those who serve in silence. And remember, sometimes the guardian you're looking for is the person behind the camera, documenting life while staying ready to protect it.